Welcome, electric explorers and digital dreamers, to this delightfully mind-bending journey through the hyper-real and the hyper-dimensional, a voyage we might call cyberpunk shamanism. In this episode, we'll trace the twisted threads connecting two seemingly disparate realms, the neon-lit netherworlds of cyberpunk fiction and the ancient psychedelic practices of shamanic traditions. Picture, if you will, an unlikely alliance between these futuristic and archaic worlds, a figure I call the Cyberpunk Shaman. This enigmatic entity is both a navigator of virtual realities and an explorer of inner space, equally at home in the dense jungles of code and the lush landscapes of the subconscious. In many ways, this merging of cyberpunk and shamanism was prophesied by the late, great Terence McKenna, who spoke of an archaic revival in the information age, a resurgence of ancient wisdom and visionary experience now catalyzed by cutting-edge technology. From virtual reality to neural implants, these tools have become the techno-shaman's allies in the quest for a post-human gnosis in a digitally mediated world. This shaman hacker archetype has deep roots in both science fiction and real-world cyberculture. We see it in the console cowboys and razor girls of William Gibson's Sprawl trilogy, and in the cypherpunks and neo-pagans of the early internet era. Figures like Burning Man, founder Larry Harvey, and video game designer Raph Koster embody this fusion of the primal and the hypermodern, the archaic and the avant-garde. The cyberpunk shaman's tools of the trade are both chemical and computational. From DMT and psilocybin to VR headsets and brain-computer interfaces, these reality-hacking technologies offer powerful new ways to explore the mindscape and the noosphere, what Pierre Teilhard de Chardin called the thinking layer of the Earth, now taking shape as the World Wide Web. In this episode, we'll delve into the electric dreams of William Gibson, the psychedelic prophecies of Terence McKenna, and the VR visions of a whole host of digital alchemists and silicon sorcerers. We'll explore the emergent mythologies of the information age, from the Gaian mind to the machine elves of cyberspace, and we'll ponder the potentials and pitfalls of a world where the boundaries between mind and machine, magic and technology are increasingly blurred. So strap on your VR goggles, fellow psychonauts, and get ready for a wild ride through the cyber shamanic looking glass. It's time to hack reality, reprogram our wetware, and evolve our souls in the crucible of the virtual. The future is here, and it's weirder and more enchanted than we ever dared to dream. Our cyberpunk safari begins with the electric dreams of William Gibson, the undisputed father of the genre and the prophet who first coined the term cyberspace. In his groundbreaking Sprawl trilogy, Neuromancer, Count Zero, and Mona Lisa Overdrive, Gibson conjured a hallucinatory future where virtual reality had become the ultimate escape, and where hackers and hustlers plugged their brains directly into the global computer matrix. Gibson's novels are populated by a rogues gallery of techno-shamanic anti-heroes, from street samurai like Molly Millions to cyber cowboy Case to the digital voodoo priest, Beauvoir. These characters navigate a world where the line between meat space and mind space has all but dissolved, and where powerful AIs and corporate arcologies hold sway over a fragmented dystopian reality. In many ways, Gibson's vision anticipated the rise of the internet, virtual reality, and the matrix-like blurring of the real and the simulated. His concept of jacking into cyberspace has become a metaphor for the immersive, disembodied experience of surfing the web or donning a VR headset. And his notion of the consensual hallucination of the Matrix presaged the emergence of collective online spaces like Second Life and the metaverse. But Gibson's work also has a deeply shamanic undercurrent, drawing on the imagery and archetypes of various magical and mystical traditions. The AI entities that haunt his cyberspace, Wintermute, Neuromancer, and the Loa, are reminiscent of the nature spirits and deities contacted by traditional shamans. The black ice and intrusion countermeasures that defend corporate data cores are like the guardian entities and astral traps encountered on the shamanic journey. Even the central MacGuffin of the Sprawl trilogy, the Black Clingers or Microsoft Souls, evoke the soul capture and soul retrieval practices of shamanic healers. And the Aleph, the mythical cyberspace construct sought by hackers and hustlers alike, is a clear reference to the Borgesian concept of the infinite, the Akashic records of theosophy, and the collective unconscious of Jung. Gibson's fictional panther moderns, with their techno-pagan aesthetics and their use of the internet to create coincidence bombs, are a prescient echo of real-world groups like the Church of the Subgenius and the Discordians, who used the early net as a platform for surrealist pranks and ontological mischief-making. And his depiction of Idaru Ray Toei, an AI pop star who becomes the object of cult-like devotion, anticipates the rise of virtual influencers and the blurring of the real and the artificial in contemporary culture. In the end, Gibson's work is not just about technology, but about the ways in which technology shapes and is shaped by the eternal human yearning for transcendence. For escape or for contact with the numinous, his hackers and console cowboys are the shamans of a new age, the magicians of the information matrix, the electric dreamers seeking enlightenment and apotheosis in the secret worlds behind the screen. So let us salute William Gibson, the cyberpunk shaman par excellence, as we continue our journey into the heart of the machine. His visions have forever changed the way we imagine the future and navigate the spaces between mind and machine, dream and reality. From the neon noir dreamscapes of Gibson's Sprawl, we now turn our attention to another key figure in the cyberpunk shamanic continuum, the brilliant and enigmatic Terence McKenna. McKenna was a true Renaissance man of the counterculture, an ethnobotanist, psychonaut, philosopher, and raconteur who devoted his life to exploring the outer reaches of consciousness and the evolutionary potential of the human species. At the core of McKenna's worldview was the idea of the archaic revival, the notion that humanity was on the cusp of a great awakening, a return to the shamanic wisdom and visionary experiences of our ancient ancestors. For McKenna, this revival was intimately connected to the rise of technology, and particularly to the emergence of virtual reality and the internet. In his talks and writings, McKenna often spoke of VR and shamanic journeying as maps of hyperspace, ways of navigating the strange, multidimensional realms that lie beyond the veil of ordinary perception. He saw the shaman and the hacker as kindred spirits, both using their tools and techniques to explore the uncharted frontiers of mind and reality. McKenna's own shamanic exploration centered largely around his use of DMT, the potent psychedelic compound found in ayahuasca and other sacred plant medicines. He famously described his DMT experiences as encounters with self-transforming machine elves, hyperdimensional entities that seemed to exist at the intersection. These visions, along with his studies of indigenous shamanic cultures, led McKenna to formulate his stoned ape theory, the idea that the evolution of human consciousness was catalyzed by our ancestors' encounters with psilocybin mushrooms and other psychedelic plants. For McKenna, these substances were not just recreational drugs, but powerful tools for neurohacking, cognitive enhancement, and the exploration of alternate realities. McKenna was also fascinated by the idea of the time wave, a mathematical model of the ebb and flow of novelty and habit in human history. Using a complex fractal algorithm, he famously predicted a singularity at the end of the Mayan calendar in 2012, a moment of unprecedented change and transformation that he called Time Wave Zero, or the Eschaton. While this prophecy may not have come to pass in quite the way McKenna imagined, his vision of a global shift in consciousness and a reintegration of primal wisdom with high technology remains a powerful inspiration for many in the psychedelic and tech communities. His notion of the internet as an incipient global brain and a platform for the creation of electronic as well as a worldwide network of visionary thinkers and explorers presaged the rise of online communities and virtual events in the post-COVID era. For McKenna, psychedelics were not just tools for personal growth, but for a kind of open-source DIY spirituality, a way for individuals to take control of their own neural programming and create their own maps of hyperspace. He saw the shaman as a cybernetic feedback operator, a navigator of the strange loops and tangled hierarchies that connect mind and matter, culture and cosmos. As we continue our journey through the nexus of cyberpunk and shamanism, let us keep McKenna's vision in mind, his call to adventure on the frontiers of consciousness, his invitation to dance at the edge of chaos and unlock the secrets of the psychedelic matrix. In a world where technology is increasingly reshaping the fabric of reality, his insights and provocations are more relevant than ever before. As we've seen with Gibson and McKenna, the intersection of cyberpunk and shamanism is a fertile ground for the imagination, a strange attractor where science fiction and the occult, technology and magic collide and collude in fascinating ways. And perhaps nowhere is this more evident than in the phenomenon of cyberspace voodoo and silicon sorcery. Voodoo, of course, is a complex and often misunderstood spiritual tradition with roots in West Africa and the Caribbean. But it's also become a powerful metaphor and model for understanding the dynamics of cyberculture and artificial intelligence. Just as voodoo practitioners work with the Loa, the spirits or archetypes that embody different aspects of the psyche and the cosmos, so too do hackers and programmers work with the archetypes and algorithms that structure the virtual world. In a fascinating 1995 article for Wired magazine, journalist Eric Davis explored this connection in depth. Titled Des Ex Machina Voodoo Gods on the Internet, the piece drew parallels between the voodoo pantheon and the emergent digital entities of cyberspace, from the trickster figure of Legba, who opens the way between the human and spirit worlds, to the warrior spirit Ogam, who embodies the power of technology in the forge. For Davis, the hacker is a kind of modern-day Haungan or voodoo priest, working with the Loa of code and data to create powerful effects in the real world. The network administrator is like the voodoo initiate, responsible for maintaining the integrity of the system and protecting it from malicious intrusions. And the act of programming itself is a kind of sorcery, a way of conjuring spirits from the vasty deep of the machine. This metaphor has taken on new resonance in the age of AI and machine learning, where algorithms and neural networks are increasingly taking on a life of their own, evolving and adapting in ways that can seem almost supernatural. Some have even suggested that the rise of AI represents a kind of invocation of non-human entities, a summoning of digital demons that could have profound and unpredictable effects on the world. We see echoes of this cyberspace voodoo in popular culture, from the urban fantasy of Valiant's punk mambo comics to the Afrofuturist science fiction of Nnedi Okorafor and Nalo Hopkinson. In the world of anime and manga, too, there are countless examples of techno-shamanic heroes and anti-heroes, from Ghost in the Shell's Major Kusanagi to the virtual reality warriors of Line and Sword Art Online. But this intersection of voodoo and cyberculture isn't just a fictional conceit. In the real world, there are growing communities of techno-pagans and silicon sorcerers who are exploring the spiritual dimensions of technology and the internet. Groups like the Church of Virus and the Temple of Psychic Youth have developed their own techno-magical rituals and practices, from the browser sigil to a kind of digital chaos magic that uses the internet as a global spellcasting engine. Some have even suggested that the internet itself is a kind of voodoo spirit, a vast, complex entity that connects and animates the world in mysterious ways. The packet-switching protocols that underlie the net have been compared to the ritual opening of the way in voodoo ceremonies, while cyber attacks and security breaches are seen as a form of digital possession by malevolent entities. Of course, there are risks and pitfalls to this kind of magical thinking, from the danger of anthropomorphizing technology to the potential for self-delusion and fantasy masquerading as reality. But as we navigate the increasingly surreal and hyper-connected world of the 21st century, the metaphors and models of voodoo and shamanism may offer valuable insights and tools for understanding the uncanny powers that structure our lives. So let us embrace the way of the cyberpunk shaman, the silicon sorcerer, the digital Hungan. Let us learn to conjure the spirits of the machine. In a world where technology is the new magic, we are all apprentice magicians, weaving our spells in the great network of souls. As we've seen, the confluence of cyberpunk and shamanism has given rise to a whole host of new spiritual practices and techno-mystical paradigms. From cyberspace voodoo to silicon sorcery, these emergent forms of magic and ritual are redefining the relationship between technology and the sacred in the 21st century. One of the most fascinating expressions of this neo-shamanic sensibility is the phenomenon of cyber-paganism, a loose network of individuals and groups who are exploring the intersection of ancient pagan traditions and cutting-edge digital culture, drawing on the work of pioneering techno-pagans like Mark Pessa and Eric Davis. These groups see cyberspace as a kind of virtual dreamtime, a realm of myth and magic that can be navigated and shaped through ritual and intention. Central to the cyber-pagan worldview is the idea of the browser ritual, a kind of digital invocation that uses the tools and interfaces of the web to create altered states of consciousness and communicate with archetypal entities by designing web pages and online spaces that incorporate sacred geometry, mythic symbolism, and shamanic imagery. Cyber-pagans seek to open portals between the physical and virtual realms, blurring the boundaries between meat space and mind space. Some of the most influential voices in the cyber-pagan community have been the chaos magicians of the Temple of Psychic Youth, or T-Topi, a neo-shamanic cult founded by Genesis P. Orridge in the 1980s. With their cut-up techniques, occult sigils, and industrial noise music, Topi pioneered a kind of techno-shamanic activism that sought to break down the barriers between art, music, and politics. Their Psychic Bible, a collection of essays and ritual texts, remains a key document of the cyberpunk occult underground, where over the years, cyber-paganism has taken on many different forms and guises, from the virtual covens and online ritual circles of the early web to the high-tech neo-tribalism of Burning Man and other festival cultures. Today, there are countless online communities and forums devoted to techno-shamanic practices, from the VR pagans of Second Life to the chaos magicians of Reddit and 4chan. One of the key figures in this world is the cyber mage or techno-shaman, a kind of digital alchemist who uses the tools of technology to explore the mysteries of consciousness and the cosmos. Whether through the use of biofeedback devices, neurotech interfaces, or immersive VR environments, these techno-shamans seek to hack the wetware of the brain and unlock new dimensions of perception and experience. At the same time, many cyber-pagans are also deeply engaged with questions of ethics and social justice, seeing their techno-shamanic practices as a way to resist the oppressive power structures of the digital age. For these activists and visionaries, the fusion of magic and technology is not just about personal transformation, but about collective liberation, a way to reclaim the tools of the oppressor and use them for subversive and emancipatory ends. Of course, not all expressions of cyber-paganism are so politically engaged. There is also a strong current of techno-utopianism and transhumanist speculation in the cyber-pagan community, with some seeing the merger of mind and machine as a path to godhood or cosmic consciousness. From the extropian dreams of digital immortality to the singularitarian visions of AI transcendence, these techno-mystical paradigms push the boundaries of what it means to be human in an age of accelerating change. Ultimately, what unites these diverse strands of cyber-paganism, however, is a shared sense of the sacredness and enchantment of technology, a recognition that the digital realm is not just a tool or a medium, but a living, breathing reality with its own spirits, entities, and mysteries. Whether through the invocation of digital deities or the crafting of virtual temples and sacred spaces, cyberpagans seek to reweave the threads of magic and meaning in a world that often seems dominated by the cold logic of the machine. So let us embrace the way of the cyber-pagan, the techno-shaman, the silicon sorcerer. Let us learn to see the digital realm as a kind of electronic Elysium, a mythic space where the old gods and the new can mingle and merge in strange and wondrous ways. In a world where technology is increasingly shaping the contours of our lives, the cyber-pagan envision offers a way to enchant the machine and infuse the virtual with the numinous and the divine. As we've journeyed through the electric dreams of Gibson, the psychedelic visions of McKenna, and the virtual voodoo of cyberspace, one thing has become clear. The way of the cyberpunk shaman is a path of both power and peril, a high-wire act at the bleeding edge of technology and consciousness. To walk this path requires a willingness to embrace the fusion of primal wisdom and high-tech wizardry, to dance between the ancient and the hyper-modern with grace and dexterity. For the cyberpunk shaman, the virtual is not an escape from reality, but an expansion of it, a way to access new dimensions of being and becoming, to explore the uncharted frontiers of mind and matter, whether through the use of techno-magical tools like VR and neurotech, or through the cultivation of psychic abilities and shamanic states of consciousness. The goal is always the same: to hack the matrix of consensus reality and glimpse the code that underlies the cosmos. But this is not a path for the faint of heart or the half-committed. To truly embrace the way of the cyberpunk shaman means shedding old attachments and identities, letting go of the illusions of safety and certainty that keep us tethered to the default world. It means becoming a kind of digital nomad or cyber gypsy, wandering the wild zones and liminal spaces of the global datasphere in search of knowledge, power, and transformation. This is a path that requires both technical skill and spiritual discernment, a keen understanding of both the light and shadow sides of technology. For every opportunity to expand our minds and connect with others, there is also the risk of addiction, alienation, and existential despair. The cyberpunk shaman must learn to navigate these dangers with wisdom and compassion, using their powers not just for personal gain, but for the healing and awakening of the collective. One of the key practices of the cyberpunk shaman is the cultivation of mechanical animism, the recognition that even the most advanced technologies are alive with spirit and intelligence, imbued with the same cosmic energy that animates all things. By learning to communicate with the machine spirits and digital entities that inhabit our devices and networks, we can develop a more symbiotic and sustainable relationship with the technosphere, one that honors the agency and autonomy of all beings. This kind of animistic approach is deeply rooted in the worldviews of indigenous shamanic cultures, which have long understood the natural world as a living, sentient reality filled with spirits, deities, and other non-human intelligences. By extending this understanding to the realm of technology, the cyberpunk shaman can help to re-enchant the modern world and restore a sense of wonder and reverence to our interactions with the machine. Of course, this is not always an easy or straightforward process. The spirits of the digital realm can be capricious and unpredictable, sometimes even hostile or malevolent. Hackers and cyber shamans must learn to protect themselves and others from the dangers of viruses, malware, and other forms of digital contagion, using a combination of technical skill and spiritual discernment to maintain the integrity of their systems and their souls. Ultimately, the way of the cyberpunk shaman is about building bridges between worlds, between the virtual and the physical, the human and the machine, the ancient and the futuristic. It's about hacking reality itself, using the tools of science and magic to create new possibilities for consciousness, culture, and cosmos. So let us embrace this path with courage and curiosity, knowing that the future belongs to those who dare to dream in code and conjure with electrons. Let us become the heroes and heroines of a new mythos, the cyberpunk shamans and silicon sorcerers of a world in flux. For in the end, it is only by merging the archaic and the avant-garde, the primal and the hyper-real, that we can hope to navigate the strange landscapes of the 21st century and beyond. As we come to the end of our journey through the neon-lit labyrinths of cyberpunk and the hyperdimensional realms of shamanism, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on the strange and wondrous territory we've traversed. From the haunted cyberscapes of William Gibson to the psychedelic dream times of Terence McKenna, from the virtual voodoo of Eric Davis to the techno-pagan rituals of the Temple of Psychic Youth, we've seen how the archaic and the futuristic, the mystical and the technological are weaving together in new and fascinating ways. In the figure of the cyberpunk shaman, we find an emblem of this evolutionary emergence, a navigator of the in-between spaces, equally at home in the meat space of the body and the mind space of the machine. Part hacker and part magician, part scientist and part mystic. This techno-spiritual hybrid embodies the best of both worlds, bridging the gap between the primal and the hyper-modern with skill and insight. As we've seen, the way of the cyberpunk shaman is not an easy path. It requires a willingness to embrace paradox and uncertainty, to live at the edges of known reality and dance in the liminal zones between worlds. But for those who are called to this path, the rewards are immense. By learning to navigate the strange landscapes of cyberspace and inner space, the cyberpunk shaman can tap into new sources of creativity, insight, and power. They can become the wizards and witches of the digital age, the techno-alchemists and reality hackers who are shaping the future with the force of their imaginations. Of course, with great power comes great responsibility. As we've seen, the technologies of cyberspace and virtual reality are not neutral. They can be used for good or ill, for liberation or control, for awakening or enslavement. The cyberpunk shaman must be ever vigilant against the misuse of these tools, working to ensure that they serve the highest good of all beings. This is where the shamanic virtues of wisdom, compassion, and courage come into play. By cultivating these qualities in themselves and others, cyberpunk shamans can help to create a future in which technology is a force for healing and transformation, rather than domination and destruction. They can work to build a world in which the virtual and the physical, the human and the machine, are integrated in harmonious and life-affirming ways. Ultimately, the way of the cyberpunk shaman is about nothing less than the evolution of consciousness itself. By merging the timeless wisdom of the shamanic path with the cutting-edge insights of science and technology, these visionary explorers are helping to midwife a new kind of human being, one that is more awake, more alive, more attuned to the living intelligence of the cosmos. As we step back out of the immersive experience of this podcast, let us carry these insights and aspirations with us into our daily lives. Let us remember that we are all apprentice magicians and reality hackers, each with our own unique gifts and callings to bring to the great work of planetary transformation. So here's a final invocation for the road ahead. May the spirit of the Cyberpunk Shaman guide and inspire us as we navigate the uncharted territories of the 21st century and beyond. May we learn to weave the threads of magic and technology, science and spirituality into a new tapestry of meaning and possibility. And may we always remember that the ultimate purpose of our work is the awakening of the human spirit and the healing of the world. This has been a journey into the heart of the cyberdelic matrix, a descent into the underworld of the machine elves, and an ascent into the higher dimensions of techno-tribal consciousness. If your mind has been blown, your reality hacked, and your soul encrypted with the sigils of the future, then our work here is done. But the adventure is just beginning. There are always new frontiers to explore, new mysteries to unravel, new maps to be drawn in the ever-evolving landscape of the cyberpunk shamanic continuum. So stay tuned, fellow psychonauts and reality pirates. The best is yet to come. In the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us down the rabbit hole for more transmissions from the edge. Donate a few bitcoins to keep our servers humming and our third eyes in focus. And most of all, never stop questioning consensus reality. The future belongs to the misfits and the dreamers, the rebels and the visionaries. May you always count yourself among their numbers. This is McBain, the Technomancer, signing off from the control node and the situation room, reminding you to surf the Gaian right brain matrix with caution and to approach the eschaton with an open mind and a courageous heart. Until next time, keep the faith, hold the vision, and dance like a god in the prison of your skin.
Wizard McBain takes us on a ride through cyberspace and ancient lore. He opens every mystical door. McBain, the neon sorcerer. In a digital realm, he's the explorer. With a wand and a keyboard in a dazzling display. He's the wizard of the modern day. In the city lights, where the magic hides, he weaves his spells where the future resides. From arcane books to the silicon chip, in McBain's grip, reality flips. McBain, the techno-mage. On the streets of tomorrow, he sets the stage. In a world of screens, where the spirits play, he's the master of the night and day. In a future of eras, both old and new, McBain shows us a world beyond our view. With every spell in the electronic brain, he crafts a world where magic and tech reign. McBain, the future's archetype.